welcome into Tiger Talks Wrestling. I am your host, Tony. Hello. It's been a few weeks. Welcome into Tiger Talks Wrestling. I am Tony. Joined by the almighty Shazam, the reigning defending TikTok champion, apparently.
How's it going?
Nice. Going pretty good. How about you?
Doing good.
Good. So we got a lot to recap on since we've been off for a couple weeks. I think the best place to start when we were last on was the beginning of WrestleMania Night 2, of course, the day of. We talked all about WrestleMania Saturday, but man, WrestleMania Sunday was completely different, I feel like, than what WrestleMania Saturday was.
For sure.
Not for the best of reasons either. I mean, I felt like Sunday's WrestleMania kicked off maybe better than Saturday did. Perhaps surprising to say that Brock and Omos was a little bit better than Cena in theory, but I personally felt like it was a better start to the show.
I mean, it could have been a better match to start the show, but I mean, it ended in its usual thing. Omos takes control, opponent hits a finisher, 1, 2, 3, Omos gets pinned.
Which you had to figure was going to happen, so. Okay. This is not how I wanted exactly. Let me get... There we go, that's better. Now I can see the full screen. Go over the matches real quick. I mean, after that one, after that opening match, they had women's tag team showcase. I would say when you talk about the two tag team showcases, they were very much night and day. This one was nowhere near as good as the men's one that we've seen on Saturday.
I mean, and it was predictable. And no matter how much I wanted Liv's team to win, you knew who was going to win. And the worst part was they were barely in the ring at all. They step in, and all of a sudden the match is over.
Yeah, I think main thing of that was Ronda was actually injured and probably wasn't supposed to really be getting physical because she didn't get physical. I mean, she just put Liv in the arm, or put not Liv, but Shotzi in the arm bar, and that was all she did. So, which was all she needed to get the win. I mean, I've seen since WrestleMania, Chad Gable, I think, mentioned on social media or somewhere in an interview that he thinks that the tag team showcases will be something that we'll be seeing at WrestleManias going forward. And he felt like the men's really showed that it should be a showcase for WrestleMania for the men's tag team division, which I would agree with that for the men's, but I'm kind of hoping that we don't get it for the women.
And it also showed off Chad Gable as one of the most underrated people in tag team wrestling. You can't forget about what he did to Braun.
I know, right?
I mean, that was insane on itself. I mean, there were so many good moments that you remember from that match.
You're right. You're right. But again, like I said, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you had the women's showcase match.
Armbar, yay!
Unfortunately, after that, we got to see Bobby Lashley, but all Lashley got to do at WrestleMania was come out and show off his Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy. Such a waste, honestly. You got so much talent on there, and you give... I'm going to throw a little shade here. You give Miz 2/3 matches over the 2 nights, and you don't have time to put Bobby Lashley in a match with LA Knight or somebody on the card. that's not being used, that's just BS to me. Actually deserved a better spotlight than that over WrestleMania weekend.
I get that he was supposed to take on Bray Wyatt and all that, but you have plenty of people that deserve an opportunity at Mania in the back. And I'm not just talking about one thing, but let me talk to you.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can't have WrestleMania in LA without LA Knight. Yeah.
But they did. But anyway, we go on from there to what many people are saying, and I would agree, it's probably one of the top 3 matches. I know a lot of people are saying it was the top match, probably the weekend, but the triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship. My God, those 3 men, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, and Gunther, beat the living hell out of each other in that match.
I'd say definitely top 5 of the weekend, but not the top one on this show. I think there's one that clearly takes the cake that we'll get to in a little bit, but not to quote the losers in this match, but it was, how's that saying go again? Banger after banger after banger.
Banger after banger. Yeah.
And I mean, it ended the way it should have. I mean, they closed the story right there, and it was a perfect way to get back on track on Sunday.
Right. That was definitely the beginning of the good part of WrestleMania Sunday. Let's put it that way. You go from there, of course. The next match was Asuka and Bianca Belair for the Raw Women's title. Still a pretty good match, but it didn't live up anywhere as close to Bianca's past 2 WrestleMania matches, in my opinion.
No.
I don't know what it is, but it seemed like, to me, honestly, I don't know if it's how long she's been champion or what, but it seemed like at the Royal Rumble, her and Alexa had kind of a crappy match, and her and Asuka here didn't have that great of a match either. And I feel like they could have done so much more in both cases, and we know from the years that we've seen Alexa Bliss and Asuka on the main roster, they can put on some really good matches. But for some reason, I don't know if the chemistry is just not there and it doesn't click with Bianca, or what exactly the case is, but something.
I think Bianca just needs to drop the title and give it like a fresh start. And I feel like I was hoping she'd lose it, and then with this upcoming stuff we'll talk about in a little bit, have her go to a different show. But I feel like she's gone against everyone. There's no one that can really compete anymore with her, and it's like, where do you go from here? I mean, Asuka, as the Kana Asuka, was really the last resort. You haven't seen that before, and now it's like you can't really do anything else unless you bring up. I don't think if you draft someone from NXT to Raw or whatever, there's not going to be anyone that can really go right into a program with Bianca and actually make a difference.
Yeah, I would say to take off a point from that, we've seen that happen kind of in the past. I guess it wasn't really the draft, but when Paige first made her debut on the main roster the night after WrestleMania several years back, she was somebody you actually could see as a contender to AJ Lee at that point in time. I mean, she was the NXT Women's Champion, yes, but still, she was somebody that was a believable contender and believable champion going forward as she won the title. But yeah, I agree. There's not really any one. I say not really any one person, but I could kind of think of one person who might be legitimate enough.
Well, if what happens on spring break, I could see it being someone.
Yeah, I don't think you'd like who I'm thinking that possibly could be that someone from NXT.
If you say someone that starts with a Z, it ends with a OE Stark, that's not what I'm thinking. I was thinking that if Indy was just this transitional champion, losing it, and then be that Paige or whatever, kind of recreate that, but with Indy versus Bianca. And it's not going to be a fair match, but strength-wise, I think Indy could give Bianca a fair run.
She probably could. But we'll see.
Unless Nikita Lyons says, screw NXT, goes to Raw, whoops Bianca's butt, and we are all down with this. Yes.
Of course, of course.
Just saying.
Yeah, Bianca won that Raw Women's title match. Then we move on from there to you get Snoop Dogg and The Miz talking about this show, and you get Miz put into a match by Snoop Dogg again, and we get the return of the prodigal son, if you will.
Money.
Shane O'Mac. I noticed a couple things with Shane here. He kind of stumbled a little bit in his entrance, for one.
Yep.
So I'm almost wondering if that isn't where the issues began really for him, as the match ended up being as short as it was, and he ended up tearing his quad early on, which sucks. I mean, Shane did get a really good reaction from the crowd. I'll give him that much.
But I do like how Wikipedia put it in as a triple threat match.
Did they?
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that. I mean, I guess it fits.
I mean, yeah, because technically the Shane and Miz match never ended. And all of a sudden, Snoop's where it's at.
Right? Snoop pops in and punches Miz. I guess from what I've seen on social media, a producer or one of the cameramen on the outside actually instructed Snoop to go in there and punch Miz after Shane went down. But
it was worth it.
It was. I mean, and then you get the Snoopy elbow. Yeah, it was hilarious. I'll give him that much to it. Poor Miz ends up getting pinned by Snoop Dogg. I mean, he went 0 for 2 on the 2 nights of WrestleMania. And we'll get into what Miz has done since then shortly. Not much else to say about that whole scenario. Then you move on to Hell in a Cell. You get the Brood version of Edge coming out to pretty interesting entrance. Very nice entrance. And then, of course, you got the Demon Finn Balor. A little different of a look there. They had a great match going, and you get a ladder involved, and smack! Busted open Finn Balor was required, I believe. I mean, I know it eventually was 18 or 14. I mean, but I believe they originally said it took like 8 staples during the match to close up that wound. So, and the man still went another like 5 minutes in the match after that.
But and that's just to show you can plan and practice this all the time. But until you're in the match where you're sweating, you're not going to know how you're going to release that ladder to make it land where it's supposed to. And it's just one of the things that can happen.
Accidents happen. I mean, Finn even had one crazy ass spot there after he got busted open. I mean, climbing up on the little platform thing on the side of the cell and going for the coup de grace. I mean, he missed because Edge moved, but how he didn't break his ankles doing that, I have no idea.
Right.
Still was an incredible to see the things he was able to still do and perform even after getting his head busted open and stapled shut during the match. I feel like some individuals would not have been able to continue that match, but it shows the guts, fortitude, the passion, I guess you could say, for Finn Balor. Of course, Edge ends up winning that match, which I would say was one of the top matches of the night, personally.
Oh, that's my go-to match right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one just loses credit.
Yeah, I have a feeling on that. I will say one thing as looking through this, the entrance that Bianca Belair did have there, the Divas of Compton doing the entrance, and then finding out that the smallest one, who is kind of the contortionist or whatever, had lost her mom earlier in the day. Yeah, still was WrestleMania and did that. I mean, that is incredible. And of course, I mean, Triple H mentioned it on the press conference afterwards that thoughts and prayers to that family, but that's.
I mean, he could barely. He was getting so emotional in that press conference too because he could barely get through it, and just for that to happen, and then still come and do what you're doing without like no one could tell something was wrong or nothing like that.
Right.
That just shows how much heart is out there.
That it does. That little girl just wasn't gonna not do it just because things had gone terrible in their family for that day. All right. Of course, you get the Hall of Famers come out and get their spotlight. And then we go into the main event. Yeah. So the night before, we got what we wanted. This night, not so much. A great match, I will say. No doubt about it. I still think personally, and I think a lot of people will agree, the wrong person won. This was the moment that Cody Rhodes should have walked out as undisputed champion.
Agreed 100%. And I mean, it was a great match. Each one had so many different spots. Beautiful.
Right.
Until the ending. And oh my God. The ending screwed. I mean, I get why they did it.
Right.
Because they want to get to that 1,000-day reign. But you could have done so much better job. The end was so sloppy, and you knew once Cody started backing up towards the corner, someone was getting involved. And it's just like, on a match that had so many high hopes on it, the ending ruined the whole thing.
I'd agree. Definitely agree. I mean, I keep seeing all these people as we've gone 3 weeks past now. All these people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, for instance, and other people saying that it was such a great match and they agreed with the finish of it. But I mean, personally, it kind of brought things down for me to end WrestleMania that way. I mean, like I seen Matt Cardona mention on social media, Triple H said something about how this could be Cody Rhodes's comeback story, so as to speak, or his fighting up or whatever that I've seen on certain things on social media. Cody doesn't need that. He's done that all of his career. I mean, we had this guy in paint as Stardust before he left WWE for 6 years. He doesn't need to lose at WrestleMania and then have to climb his way back up. This guy has proven himself.
I mean, like all the memes, the evolution of Cody Rhodes. Dashing, scholar, Stardust, nightmare.
Right? That's all you need. But here we are, getting closer to that 1,000-day reign now instead.
Well, if the so-called rumors are true, I'll be looking forward to SummerSlam even more.
We'll see. We'll get into that in a little bit more. Before we go into the next show, there was big news the next morning. WWE officially sold to Endeavor, the parent company of the UFC. With that, what exactly that means for WWE going forward, we'll have to wait and see for the most part. So many things have come from it. I mean, Vince McMahon's back with the company. Apparently, Endeavor wanted Vince back with the company to officially go through with the whole sale. Supposedly, Vince McMahon's not in charge of creative anymore, but he is the chairman for 2 years. I know, right? We'll get into that, but it's just going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months how exactly Endeavor is going to change things up. I mean, they're even talking about how eventually they might go back to a pay-per-view model of some sorts instead of just having it on Peacock, which I think would be a big loss for them personally. Yeah. Who knows where exactly television-wise will be next year, because the contracts are going to be up next year by October time. They're supposed to be talking to USA, NBC, Universal, rather, and Fox at some point soon, now that WrestleMania is done. It's just hard to say. I know Endeavor, from what I've heard, I'm not a huge UFC person, but from what I've heard, Endeavor, since they took ownership of UFC, has helped with a lot of things with money and merchandise and stuff like that there, but we'll see where things go. All right. That definitely was huge news. I mean, Triple H even tried to avoid the questions about it at the press conference after WrestleMania. So,
and the good thing about WrestleMania, they didn't run out of Snickers on night 2.
I know, right? Yeah, nobody was really. I don't think anybody really ate any of the Snickers. Well, no, they didn't have any Snickers at the press conference afterwards. That's right.
Yeah, because Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are just, throwing them back like crazy.
I know, right? All right. So then we're going to run through these shows real quick here, but we're going to talk a little bit more about this show, obviously. Raw after Mania. We've grown to expect so much from Monday Night Raw, the night after WrestleMania, over the years. This year's, however, overshadowed maybe by the sale, overshadowed by the fact that Vince McMahon was there at the arena and apparently had a lot of things to do with it. Supposedly, I mean, at first I was seeing that he did a lot of rewrites, and then other things I've seen said he didn't have anything to do with any rewrites and things went how they were supposed to. It's like, whatever. Who knows really what happened here, but this Raw after Mania was the shits. Point blank period.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah, probably.
This Monday Night Raw was like watching the Oakland Athletics play baseball.
Oh, damn. I mean, I'll give it. They had 2 good matches on Raw after Mania. 2 out of the 6.
Yeah,
7, 6.
There should have been 3, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Because Omos and Elias was what you'd figure it'd be, a squash match, but Ray and Theory had a great match. Unfortunately, the ending wasn't so great, and what happened after the match wasn't so great for Bad Bunny, the host of Backlash, coming up here next weekend. But Theory got the win, which I personally feel like he needed to win that match since he beat Cena 2 nights before to keep his momentum rolling. That's my opinion. I know certain people aren't big fans of Theory around here.
Who?
I don't know. Who?
What?
Thanks to Dominic Mysterio, of course, that Ray got beat by Theory. And then afterwards is when you seen Bad Bunny get involved and ended up punching Dominic twice before getting a beating himself from Damian Priest, his former friend.
And tag team partner.
Yes. Including taking the Razor's Edge through the announce table, or on the announce table, whichever you want to call it. So we know where that's heading to, though. So
oh yeah,
more tomorrow night. And the other really good match was the tag team match. You had KO and Sammy versus the Street Profits. It was pretty much what you would expect from those 4. I felt like, for a match almost like thrown together. It felt like, but random match, that's for sure. Random, but yet kind of deserving, I guess, since the Street Profits did win the WrestleMania Showcase match.
Agreed.
Sammy got the win, beating Montez Ford. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Street Profits here in a little bit, but I think they're going to have an interesting next few months. Let's put it that way. Uh, Lashley beat Mustafa Ali in pretty much a squash match. Liv and Raquel beat Dakota Kai and Io Sky to become number one contenders for the women's tag team titles.
Yeah, they did.
Pretty much. That was a decent match. I'll say that much about it.
I don't care. I just like the outcome.
Yeah, of course you did. Moving over Dakota. No Bailey in sight, by the way. And you got Miz coming out and talking about everything that was going on over WrestleMania weekend and says that there's going to be no more interruptions. And he gets interrupted yet again by the returning Matt Riddle. Miz actually attacked Riddle first, but Riddle ended up getting the better of Miz, taking the Miz out of play.
Bro.
Yeah. Do I need to talk to them about the match coming up? So I guess the last thing to talk about from Raw After Mania, of course, at the beginning of the show to the end of the show, Cody Rhodes had come out at the beginning of the show. Well, back up a little bit. Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman came out first. And Roman was bragging about winning at Mania pretty much. Cody comes out and wanted a rematch, of course. Paul Heyman says, no, not happening. Well, Cody says, well, we're all here just to compete. Let's give these people something. So Paul agrees that they can have a tag team match, but any partner that Cody Rhodes can find would have to forfeit any opportunity at facing Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Enter the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. As we know from SummerSlam, can no longer compete against Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. So that made sense there. However, so this kind of gave me a heads up that something was going to happen. When you get all four of these competitors coming out to the ring, and then the ring announcer is standing in the ring to announce a main event match, tag team match on Monday Night Raw, that kind of tells you something's going to happen, because usually the ring announcer doesn't stay in the ring to do introductions for just a simple tag team match to end a show. Unless it's a tag team title match. So I knew something was going to happen. Did I necessarily see Brock Lesnar turning on Cody Rhodes and beating the living hell out of him? Not necessarily, but that is what we got. You got the Beast being the Beast and F5 and Cody Rhodes, I think 3 or 4 times. Suplexes. I mean, the F5 in the ring, the F5 on the announce table or through the announce table, the F5 on the steps. Cody was banged up, that's for sure. Pretty crappy. Yeah, pretty crappy 24 hours for Cody Rhodes. Yeah, that was pretty much Raw After Mania. Anything you want to add to that show?
Worst booking ever.
Yeah, I would agree.
I do like the return of Riddle.
Right.
But it could have been so much more.
I agree. I mean, I think we're going to get some of what we were expecting for that night coming up this upcoming week, but we'll see. We shall see. I'm not going to go over all the shows, but I do want to, not fully, I will mention how that week's NXT did see 2 title retentions as Indy Hartwell beat Zoe Stark to retain the women's title. Wesley had a great main event match on NXT, beating Axiom to retain the North American title as well. So, 2 matches worth watching. They had a couple other matches on there, but nothing really worthwhile. Well, Nathan Frazier and Dragon Lee had a really good match, but that week's Dynamite had House of Black retain the trios titles over Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. Jamie Hayter retained her women's title over Riho. Sammy Guevara beat Commander. Hook beat Ethan Page to retain the FTW championship with a little help from Matt Hardy. Blackpool Combat Club beat Three Nobodies and attacked Hangman Adam Page, and Bryan Danielson returned after a few weeks off and proceeded to use a screwdriver in the face of Hangman Adam Page. Yeah.
Talk about a screw job.
I was just going to say something along those lines. Haven't seen Hangman since. And then the main event, the Guns got beat by FTR for FTR to win the tag team titles, where the stipulation was if they lost, they would be leaving AEW. That tag team match, honestly, I've seen so much better from FTR than that match that they had there. But
I will say, before Monday Night Raw, I had I was so sure FTR was going to lose, and they'd be back within a couple weeks with WWE. Yeah, then Monday Night Raw happened. And I was like, nope, we aren't getting them.
Yeah, we found out that we're not.
We're not getting Switchblade either.
Nope. Other people. Yeah, because Switchblade did debut that episode of Dynamite at the beginning of the show, too. So, for anybody who didn't know, Jay White did. The SmackDown after WrestleMania, you had a really good match to kick off the show. I mean, the 6-man tag match where Imperium went against the Brawling Brutes. Personally, with the news that we got during this SmackDown, I feel like this may have been the last time we see one of those two teams, at least, as a trio.
I think it'll be the Brawling Brutes.
Agreed.
I have a feeling that Sheamus might stay on SmackDown, but I feel like I'm not going to call him Butch. I feel like Pete Dunne and Ridge Holland are heading to Raw, if not down to NXT.
I know from things I've been reading, Triple H's plan is still to get rid of the Butch name and have him be Pete Dunne again, but he wants him out of the Brawling Brutes before he changes it.
Unless that's how he gets out of the Brawling Brutes, like Sheamus and Ridge Holland stay on, and all of a sudden, Raw chooses Pete Dunne. Who the fuck is that?
Some people probably would say that. Yeah, we'll get to that here in a moment. They had a really great 6-man tag match. I felt like Sheamus gets the win with the brogue on Giovanni Vinci. It didn't have Gunther take the loss there. I'll give that much to him. After having Gunther retain the title at WrestleMania, good to make Sheamus get the win too, I guess, but make him look good going forward. We haven't seen Sheamus or the Brawling Brutes in the last 2 weeks since then, though. So it'll be interesting to see where things go for them after what's coming up. We got Ricochet versus Ivar in a pretty decent match. Braun and Eric were barred from ringside. Valhalla was out there, but Ricochet ended up picking up a win. Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan beat Shotzi and Natalya in another decent match for the women's tag teams. I'm going to do Triple H's announcement last before we go on past SmackDown. LA Knight popped backstage as Xavier Woods and Madcap Moss were playing WWE 2K, and LA Knight was complaining about how Xavier made it on WrestleMania because he was doing the video game stuff backstage, and LA Knight couldn't be on there. And LA Knight had a good point there, personally, I feel like, but no. Oh, we'll show this. But comment section. What up? He's getting ready. He's going back to being Pete Dunne. Written off. I don't know if he'll get written off of TV, but like I said, we'll get into what might happen. From there, we went in. Like I said, we'll get to Triple H's announcement later. Dominic Mysterio and Damian Priest went against Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio. Huh, I didn't realize. Yeah, that match happened twice recently. Well, it's different competitors, but Good tag team match. Of course, Judgment Day gets the win. It was Priest pinning Santos there. Zelina Vega, though, got the better of Rhea Ripley during that match. Sent her into the barricade. We'll get into more of where that's to, but
I've never liked Zelina Vega.
No.
However, this Zelina with the LWO is something we haven't seen before, and
that's true.
I feel like this is the whole LWO angle and all that. I feel like it was great for her because she can build off it. She's just not that. She's not like, I don't want to use the word escort, but she's not just an escort anymore. She's actually someone important within the faction itself.
Right.
So this is probably the best Zelina that I've seen in a while.
I would agree. After the match, Ray would end up dropkicking Damian Priest out of the ring, and the rest of Judgment Day would keep Priest from getting back in the ring. Get a video showing that Shinsuke Nakamura would be returning the following week. Yeah. And then we go into the main event. I mean, a lot built up to it, how Sammy was trying to tell KO that he still needed to talk to Jay. He felt like he still owed some stuff to Jey Uso for the most part and still wanted to try and talk Jay out of doing things for his cousin. But KO told him, Jay's a lost cause. You don't need to do any of it. You're just setting yourself up for failure pretty much. And not to trust him. Well, Sammy should have listened because Sammy caught up with Jay. And in the background, you hear some noise as KO gets taken out by Solo Sikoa with the light beam or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah. We get Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn in the main event, which was one-on-one for about half the match. And then Solo comes out and would play dividends in the end as Jey Uso would pick up the win over Sami Zayn. And then it looked like it was going to be 2-on-1 as Solo and Jay were beating up on Sammy, except for here comes the original.
Bro.
Yep. That really even the odds, and they'd get the better of Solo and Jey Uso. I felt like this SmackDown was better than what Raw after Mania was, but still didn't feel quite as good as what SmackDown has been over the last several months, I felt like.
I mean, with how bad Raw was.
Right.
SmackDown was not going to be any better. Which sucks because there's so much possibilities they could do on the show. And I'm not saying the sale is the reason why stuff got redone and all that. It's very possible it could have been. But you had a plan. Stick to the plan. Execute the plan. And move on.
Exactly. I'd agree. So, before I go into Rampage and Battle of the Belts, Triple H did announce, and we've kind of alluded to it a little bit, that starting this upcoming Friday night on SmackDown, we have the return of the WWE Draft.
Dun, 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 dun.
Which we'll go more into detail on that towards the end of the show here. So, go into Rampage real quick. Hook beat Ethan Page in a rematch for the FTW Championship, this time under FTW rules, rather. FTI rules. Hook didn't need any help. He just made Ethan Page tap out that time. Angelo Parker and Matt Menard and the Acclaimed won an 8-man tag team match. And then afterwards, the JAS beat up the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass. Darby Allin beat Lee Moriarty. Yeah. Darby Allin beat Lee Moriarty. Afterwards, Swerve Strickland came out and distracted Darby for Brian Cage. Came out and laid him out as Brian Cage and Swerve are now working together. And Julia Hart beat Anna Jay in the main event. And they moved on to Battle of the Belts. Orange Cassidy beat Dralistico to retain the International Championship. Jade Cargill retained her. Yeah. And
Boo.
Agreed. In the main event, the Lucha Brothers beat QT Marshall and Powerhouse Hobbs to retain the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles that they won a week before. That was a pretty good match. I'll give that match to them. That tag team match was.
Well, I mean, it had the Lucha Brothers, and almost any match they're in is like...
Sure. Really good. I mean, the ladder match that they won to win the Ring of Honor tag team titles didn't go so well for Dante Martin, but accidents happen.
If you don't believe us, just ask Finn Balor.
Yes. All right. Let's move on to the following week. Last week's Raw started off with Rey Mysterio. Okay, so before we go into the Raw fully, got to mention how this card did get changed quite a bit as well. Not for the same reason, though, because there was traffic issues. Not traffic, but traveling issues. The weather was not so good going into Washington, and certain superstars were not able to make it in time for Monday Night Raw. So they had to kind of go with the flow, so as to speak, and switch things up. But I thought...
This was the Seattle show, right?
Yes, this was the Seattle show.
So remember Jamie from the WrestleMania, when there was always comedy? He was at the show.
Was he?
Yeah.
Nice.
He was not impressed.
No. I thought it was, parts of it at least, was better than the previous weeks, so.
For sure.
I mean, we'll kick off with Ray coming out there and talking. He gets interrupted by Dominic, and Ray's ready to fight, but Dominic's not ready to fight his dad again, even though Ray wants to fight his son again now, all of a sudden.
What a pussy.
Right? But instead, we get Rey Mysterio versus Finn Balor, who's still got those 14 staples in his head at that point.
The demon staple.
Yeah. Pretty cool shirt he got, too. So.
Oh, for sure. That shirt was gas.
Yeah. Ray and Finn had a really great match. Of course, Dominic gets involved and helps out Finn as Finn gets a win. It was a really good match to kick off Monday Night Raw, I felt like. We're not knowing what all we'd get with how many people were actually going to be there.
Right.
From there, we go on. Kathy Kelly backstage with Alpha Academy and Maxine Dupree. Whether or not it's Otis or Otis, we don't know yet. Maybe we'll find out next week. But
please let him get drafted as Otis.
The bigger story there was they shoot over to Lita, who's down. She had been attacked. Liv and Raquel were there. Becky and Trish show up. Adam Pearce there. Things weren't looking so hot, and it leads into the women's tag team title match. Becky Lynch had to go in this match still, but she wasn't going in alone, as Trish Stratus is going to be her tag team partner to fill in for her bestie. You got Raquel and Liv versus Trish and Becky. Honestly, I expected more from those four in this match. It felt like it was kind of sloppy. I don't know what about it, but yeah, it was very sloppy. I guess Trish has mentioned this week that she went into WrestleMania with an injury as well, so she could still be having that injury could still be lingering and might be part of the reason why things haven't looked so great for her in the ring, but I don't know. I don't want to speculate that. The ending was very shocking when she goes for the chick kick and gets rolled off and gets pinned 1, 2, 3 by Liv Morgan. Yes, John, your girl is a champion again.
Woo!
Liv Raquel are the women's tag team champions, as the tag team titles get hot shotted again in the women's division, tag team wise. Hot potato, if you will.
Same story, different day.
Right. The bigger story came after the match, though. When Becky tries boosting Trish's morale and saying, hey, it's okay, we'll get him next time. It happens. Except Trish didn't have none of that and decides to deck Becky, turn her back on her, and hit her with a chick kick. Great sell from Becky on the chick kick. Yeah, Trish is bad again. A lot of people say I kind of think I agree. This is the best version of Trish Stratus. Is usually when she's a heel Trish Stratus. So
I will say, when it comes to Becky Lynch selling that chick kick, I don't think anyone has sold it like that since Mickie James.
probably not. I would agree with that. Speaking of, hey, we could still get the tag team match that you want eventually.
I would. That would be awesome.
I mean, she's out injured right now, Mickie is, but we'll get into more on Trish here in a little bit when we get to this past week's show. You got Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed. Those two guys. Bronson Reed, let me put it this way. Bronson Reed was not feeling good at all going into the show. He was under the weather. He was thrown up pretty much. It sounded like had a fever and all that going into the match. But still, those two guys beat the living crap out of each other again, like I said with that triple threat match at WrestleMania. But two big hosses in there going at it, tooth and nail. Ends in a double count out, yes, but we knew, you had to know, we're going to get more from these two. I mean, we now know what exactly we're going to get from them when it comes to Backlash, but which I don't agree with, but we'll get into that later.
This should have been a match on WrestleMania.
I would agree. I mean, Bronson was, I'm sure, there still, so they should have put that in there. Pull apart afterwards and all that fun stuff. Then you get Cody Rhodes' interview. Cody comes out and mentions how things weren't going how he wanted it to the week before, but things can change, they can get better, and he might be crazy, but he issues a challenge. He wants the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar, as he called it, WrestleMania Backlash.
I mean,
am I afraid of Brock Lesnar? Yes, but I still can beat Brock Lesnar.
Did Cody Rhodes just have a Dean Ambrose moment?
I guess you could say that. Admitted he's crazy, and he admitted that he wants Brock Lesnar. So,
Cody Rhodes has become my favorite wrestler currently.
Mine too. No doubt about that. From there, we go in. You get the Usos versus the Alpha Academy. A really great tag team match that I feel like this one probably just had been thrown together because of the lack of other people being able to come into the show. I don't know for sure, but it just felt like it was a random match otherwise. So, but still, these four men, I mean, when you get them together, they do really good magic together. Gable looked good even in defeat when he's the one that got pinned by Jey Uso at the end. But so, if you don't got nothing else to say about that, then we move into the triple threat match to crown the number one contender for the Raw Women's title. Before I get into that match, though, we got to backtrack a little bit to what happened earlier in the show. Dakota Kai and Io Sky talking backstage, and Bayley comes out of Adam Pearce's office and mentions how she's going to be in this women's triple threat match. And Dakota and Io are like, you've had your chances. Where's our chances? Why aren't we getting these chances for the women's title? Which Bayley actually agrees that perhaps one of them should get the chance instead. And we find out Io Sky is going to get that chance. Definitely interesting to see Bayley actually kind of agree with them and give away her spot here. It's not something you would expect, I feel like, from Bayley.
With her history, no.
Right? Moving into the match, you got Io Sky versus Mia Yim versus Piper Niven. It was a pretty decent triple threat match, but it just seemed random to have those three be in the number one contenders match to me.
And the person that won is not who I would have liked to see win.
Who would you like to see win? I wasn't surprised to get one, honestly, but
I would have liked to see Piper Niven win because
Piper
I think
Niven.
Piper Niven versus Bianca would be a hell of a match.
It probably would be. I mean, we've seen, I think, tag team matches pretty much only where Bianca's been able to lift her up and hit her with the KOD a few different times, but
But was that Piper or was that Doudrop?
both, because it was just recently, a couple weeks ago, that she was Piper Niven and she got it. Because it was Asuka and Bianca versus Piper, and I can't even think of who Piper's partner was then.
I'm so glad we don't have to hear the Doudrop music anymore.
Right? Or the name, for that matter.
Yeah.
All right. And we go into the main event, and you got Solo Sikoa versus Kevin Owens, who apparently KO wasn't even technically supposed to be part of the show. The reason they had the injury happen, at the end of SmackDown, was because he was going to be taking the week off and taking his kids to Disney or wherever. Well, no, it wasn't him, because he was supposed to be in Seattle, I think, anyways. But he shows up to work because he's in the area anyway. And unfortunately for KO, Solo's not alone. He's got the Usos with him, which leads to a 3-on-1 pretty much, as Solo ends up beating Kevin Owens. After the match, when they're beating up on KO, though, here comes the cavalry as Sami Zayn and Matt Riddle finally arrive to the arena, and we get the 6 men brawling, Sami, KO, and Matt Riddle standing tall to end Monday Night Raw. Like I said, I felt like it was
much better than the week before.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Felt like it was better than Raw after Mania. All right. NXT, the women's tag team titles were successfully defended as Briggs and Jensen and Henley and Kiana James had a falling out. Eddie Thorpe beat Javier Bernal. Tiffany Stratton beat Sol Ruca, which I think sucks.
That's because Tiffany Stratton sucks.
I agree.
Sol Ruca should have won that.
She should have. Ilya Dragunov beat Von Wagner in a match where if Wagner lost, then Mr. Stone was going to walk away, which didn't end up happening. We'll get into that more when we get to this past week. Joe Coffey beat Tank Ledger, a newer guy. And then in the main event, had a fatal 4-way match to determine the number 1 contender for the NXT title, which Ron Breakker was originally who Carmella wanted to see as the 4th person, but instead Breakker came out to interrupt the MVP celebration for Chase U and speared Andre Chase as Duke Hudson took his trophy and tucked his tail and ran pretty much. But Duke Hudson got Braun Breaker's spot in this match, got Grayson Waller, Dragon Lee, and JD McDonough. It was a really great fatal 4-way match. I felt like in the end, Grayson Waller did sneak his way in and got the victory, pinning Duke Hudson, though.
Okay. No offense to Dragon Lee, because Dragon Lee is a hell of a performer.
I agree.
With the 4 men that were in the match, it seemed obvious that Grayson was going to win it.
I would agree.
Because besides Duke Hudson, making Schism look stupid.
Right.
And Dragon Lee, don't get me wrong, Dragon Lee deserves a big championship. But it's still a little too early in the NXT process. And then, JD McDonough, he's got a hell of a shot.
Right? The Irish ace, who's been getting wins left and right lately. That. I mean, he looked good in losses, but
he looked amazing until Ilya came back.
I know, right? All right. Move on to Dynamite. Darby Allin beat Swerve Strickland in a pretty good opening match. Even with Prince Nana and Brian Cage getting involved, Darby still managed to beat the odds. It's what happened after the match that was a little interesting. MJF comes out, of course, and starts talking crap to Darby Allin, and not just about Darby, though. He decides to bring up the Icon Sting as well. And that brings out the Icon. As Sting comes out, mentions how the time's ticking on his career, coming to an end, but he's still got some of the surfer sting in him. He's still got some of the crow sting in him. And as he starts pulling out pom-poms out of his jacket and throwing them at MJF's face, mentions there's still obviously some Joker left in the stinger. It even mentions Cody, the taboo name on AEW programming, and how Cody was the support system for MJF before he left to go to WWE.
Damn!
Yeah. Sting saying that he's not just a support system, though, for Darby. They are friends, and they get along. They see each other as equals, whereas MJF doesn't have that. So I felt like Sting pretty much roasted.
Bitch.
Yeah, right? I feel like Sting pretty much roasted MJF in that promo anyways. So Darby with a little bit in there too, some zingers. We'll get into more of that whole situation when we get into this week's Dynamite, because I still feel like something's going to happen that doesn't look like might happen. But we'll get into that. Powerhouse Hobbs squashed Silas Young to retain the TNT title. They showed Powerhouse Hobbs with his new car that QT Marshall had given him for winning the title. After the match, though, of course, Wardlow returns with that. Wow, I just drew a blank. I was gonna say a bat at first, but it wasn't a bat. Not a crowbar either. What was it? A lead pipe. There we go. That's what I was looking for. It was a pipe, and decides to smash. Yeah, decides to smash the car, not just with the pipe. There was other items too, and including a forklift that he would use to raise up and lift over the car. So, but Wardlow wasn't finished there, as Powerhouse Hobbs thought he was going to powerbomb Silas Young off the ramp through a table. Wardlow comes out and decides to beat up QT and Powerhouse Hobbs. Well, tries to. Security gets in there. But Wardlow would get his hands on Aaron Solo, and Aaron Solo would be the one getting powerbombed off the stage through the table set up by the stage area. They went into Jay White and Juice Robinson talking to pre-tape segment about how they Bullet Club Gold in AEW. Buddy Matthews lost to Orange Cassidy in an international championship match. Really good match those two had, but not too surprising, I feel like, when you put those two names together. Even with Orange Cassidy's injured hand that Buddy Matthews caused over the last few weeks, Orange was still able to win with a roll-up, pretty much. The mouse trap, I think, is what they call it.
Yep.
Okay, move on from there. Ethan Page comes out and is talking about how Matt Hardy's turned his back on him and all the crap that's going on. Well, Matt and Isaiah come out, and eventually Big Bill and Lee Moriarty come out, and Hook come out, and they're all fighting while the firm gets the better of the good guys. Enter the return of the charismatic enigma, Jeff Hardy, with a steel chair. Quite the unique steel chair, might I add. One that looked like he must have decorated himself. Jeff would get the better of him, as we'd get to see a Twisto and a Swanton Bomb from Jeff Hardy for the first time in 9 months. Good little reunion there for the Hardy Boys. Then we move on. You get Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli beating the living hell out of Michael Nakazawa and Brandon Cutler, the two jabronis, pretty much for the elite, if you will. Bloodied them guys up pretty badly, beat them, and then afterwards, you get the return of Kenny Omega, but Kenny wasn't alone, as the Young Bucks make their return as well. as you got the Elite almost in full force, as they would take out Claudio and Wheeler and have Moxley left cornered in the ring. And Kenny would get out. Well, Kenny would get handed a screwdriver and went towards Jon Moxley, but Moxley was Claudio grabbed Moxley by the leg and pulled him out of the ring just in time as Kenny would plant that screwdriver into the top turnbuckle. So lucky for Mox. Then the Outcasts, Tony Storm and Ruby Soho would be Sky Blue and Riho. After the match, Riho would get spray painted. Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker would come out, get all that stuff that we've been getting between those two factions, pretty much. And in the main event, you got Chris Jericho versus Keith Lee. Pretty good main event. Of course, Daniel Garcia's out there with Keith Lee getting involved a little bit, but it wasn't Daniel Garcia that would help Chris win. No, it was Swerve Strickland deciding to get involved again in Keith Lee's business and helping Chris Jericho beat Keith Lee.
What a loser.
Right? And after the match, Adam Cole comes out to try and console Keith Lee and help his friend to the back. So, interesting dynamite, to say the least. Interesting dynamic between Jericho and Cole, as Cole never looked at Jericho and never looked back at him either, just like Jericho didn't for Cole the week before, a couple weeks before too. So, all right, then we move on to SmackDown. We're just gonna go right into the matches. I know there was some segments, but nothing that big really happened with the whole Bloodline and Riddle and KO and Sammy. Brawled it out pretty much to start off the show, but. Yeah, Xavier Woods versus LA Knight in the opening match. These two had a pretty good match again. In the end, Xavier got the win, which was good with what he ends up getting this past week on SmackDown. And then it was revealed that the draft would officially be beginning here this upcoming Friday on SmackDown because the week before Triple H just said it was going to be starting soon. Then they go backstage where Imperium's talking, and Xavier Woods comes in playing his trombone and mentions how he feels like he deserves an Intercontinental Championship match since he's never gotten one, and he's been undefeated pretty much in singles action for quite some time. Since 2021, actually, when you look back at things. So, and been pinned. All right, and Sami Zayn, Matt Riddle, and Kevin Owens had a pretty interesting conversation in the back. They got an interesting dynamic. I mean, at least we got to see a more serious side of Matt Riddle by the end of that promo that they had backstage. Which is good to see for a change instead of just the goofy version of Matt Riddle, I feel like.
Right.
And we go from there. You got Damian Priest one-on-one with Santos Escobar. And again, LWO's out there, and so is Dominic and Rhea. Zelina would get the better of Rhea Ripley again during this match, surprisingly. But Damian Priest would pick up the win. I'll mention that later. Got the brawl afterwards. Ray coming out, getting involved as well. They would get the better of the Judgment Day, and the LWO would be celebrating in the ring, even though they won nothing. So then you go on to the celebration for the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, as Liv and Raquel were out getting their pyro, getting their flowers, if you will. And out comes Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green to be little party poopers. And where's our opportunity? Why aren't we getting handed these title matches? I mean, they even mentioned how Liv and Raquel didn't even technically beat the tag team champions because Trish was a replacement and it wasn't Lita that was in the match. But Liv and Raquel decide that Chelsea and Sonya will be the first ones to get an opportunity at the women's tag team titles, which will be coming up this past week on SmackDown, which we'll get into in a little bit. Then they had a little bit of a brawl afterwards, and Liv and Raquel were left standing tall at that point. Next up, you got Madcap Moss with Emma. going up against the returning King of Strong Style, Shinsuke Nakamura. I felt like this really was a really good showcase, if you will, for Shin as he makes his return here. But Madcap just looked like a fool during the match and afterwards, honestly. I mean, Emma tells him to go back in and try to get the cheap shot on Shinsuke afterwards, and Shin just avoids it and takes out Madcap again. So, to me, with this draft coming up, I feel like, I know Madcap and Emma are going to end up on the same brand, wherever, but they need a fresh start. They just need to drop the whole Madcap and just have it be Riddick Moss again. They got to change up that character more than just the name wise, but
Lil Moss.
Maybe.
Oh, I got a better one.
What?
Shorty M.
No, none of that. After that, we see Scarlett and Karrion Kross backstage, and Karrion's got one of his tarot cards, of course. This one's got a picture of Shinsuke on it.
What a shocker. I know
who Karrion Kross's next target is. Yeah, right? All right. Braun Strowman and Ricochet shown walking backstage talking, and they get attacked from out of nowhere by the Viking Raiders and Valhalla. They get destroyed pretty much by the Viking Raiders. Yeah, as that obviously isn't over with. At least it wasn't at that point. And then you go into the main event, Matt Riddle versus Solo Sikoa. Of course, they throughout the night showed how Solo took Matt Riddle out back in December on Raw. Riddle's got KO and Sammy in his corner. Solo's got the Usos out there. Before we get into the match, though, too much, Paul Heyman did come out with them before the match started and did mention that this upcoming Friday now on SmackDown will be the biggest main event in SmackDown history, as you'll have the WrestleMania Saturday main event rematch for the undisputed WWE Tag Team titles, as KO and Sammy will defend against the Usos. And Paul mentions that Roman's patience is getting really thin as he looks at the Usos. So play that how you will. I feel like this is still leading to what Sami Zayn's been harping on and been predicting all along, honestly. Trouble in paradise for the bloodline. Get into the match, and Solo, of course, there's plenty of distractions, but Solo would end up hitting the Samoan Spike and getting the win over Riddle. After the match, though, Solo would take Riddle out of the ring, toss him over the announce table, and proceed to push the announce table over onto Matt Riddle to end the show. So, another pretty good episode of SmackDown.
Unorthodox but effective.
Yes, very true. And we go into Rampage. Aussie Open. Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher beat the Best Friends to retain the IWGP Tag Team titles. Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Mark Briscoe would win an 8-man tag team match, because they use 8-man tag team matches quite often on Rampage lately. Beating Serpentico and Helico, Luther, and the mascot Jake Manning, when Mark Briscoe would hit Froggy Bow on Jake Manning. Taya Valkyrie would beat Emi Sakura and then would get laid out by Jade Cargill after the match. In the main event, Jungle Boy Jack Perry would pin Shawn Spears, the returning Shawn Spears. The perfect 10, Shawn Spears.
Oh, no, that sounds like Ty Dillinger.
Right? All right. So now we can get into this week's shows.
Whoop, whoop.
All right. Now that we're an hour plus in. So this week's show, we start off, you got Solo Sikoa in action again, this time going up against the Hall of Famer Rey Mysterio. And we actually kick off Raw with a SmackDown match. honestly, because these guys are both out of SmackDown. I mean, I guess I could back up before we go into the match too much. Uh, they start off with the Bloodline coming out to the ring with Heyman with them, and interrupted by the Judgment Day. Paul had a deal for the interesting spots. Main thing here is the way that they were lined up, of course, across from each other. You had Damien, you had Rhea Ripley and Solo Sikoa across from each other. And Paul at one point feels, I don't know if you say threatened or what, but to the point where he tells Jey Uso to switch spots with his brother Solo so that Solo is no longer staring down Rhea. To which point Finn Balor decides to move out of the way and Rhea steps over into the front of Solo Sikoa again. Paul has to ask, there's not going to be any problems here, is there?
Are we good?
Are we good?
For now.
Yes. For now. And you got the two heavies of the factions, pretty much.
No offense to Damian Priest, but Rhea's the muscle.
Yeah, that's true. As they're supposed to take care of each other's problems was the whole deal for this night. Mentioned they'd start off with Solo versus Rey Mysterio. Usos would get involved. The LWO would get involved through all the distractions and everything. Solo would hit the Samoan Spike on Rey. Really good match. Solo gets the win, of course. And then afterwards, LWO all gets taken out by Solo and the Usos, including Rey. Felt like it was a pretty good start to this version for this week's Raw, though.
Yes. I mean, it could have been worse.
Yeah. We go on backstage. Adam Pearce is with Chad Gable and Maxine Dupree and Otis again. And you notice how this whole thing started with Otis and the Maximum Male Models, all three of them. But yet, lately, over the last few weeks, it's just been Maxine Dupree. They haven't been showing Massey and Mansois so much, though. Perhaps that's kind of alluding to something happening in the draft, too. Who knows? Bianca Belair would go one-on-one with Dakota Kai. Bayley and Io Sky were in Dakota's corner. I felt like this was a good match for Bianca. Dakota showed out pretty good in it too, but in the end, Bianca would win even with the numbers of games against her. Dakota was a little dejected. Bayley didn't look the happiest. Io got a front row seat of what could be coming for her backlash, but I was surprised that we didn't see more of Bayley and Io getting involved either during or after the match, though. That was that. You got the Judgment Day backstage talking, and Paul would come in and talk to him more about how things are going down, how Solo took care of Rey for him, and wanted to make sure everything was good there. And that they wanted Damian and Finn and Dominic to take care of their issues at the end of the night in the main event. Then we move in. You got Cody Rhodes out there. What do you want to talk about? Of course, he wants to talk about the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar, who he still wants a match with. And he calls out Brock, but instead of Brock, he gets Adam Pearce coming out. Adam telling him, "You're not medically cleared, Cody. You can't do this. You cannot be doing any of this, getting physical tonight." Cody wants nothing to do with that. I mean, security guards are out there with Adam Pearce. And then you get Brock Lesnar's music playing as you get a different version of Cowboy Brock, so as to speak, coming out, almost the Undertaker version, if you will. I've gotten comparisons of on social media. Trench coat and cowboy hat and all. And Brock just stands up at the entranceway as Cody beats up the security guards trying to get his way towards Brock. It looks like he's free to get to Brock Lesnar. He gets about halfway up the ramp, and then here comes another wave of security guards to stop Cody. Brock Lesnar wouldn't touch a single soul, but Cody laid out pretty much every single security guard, and still the main thing out of it was Adam Pearce agreed to the match. It will be Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes at Backlash. But Brock Lesnar wouldn't touch nobody. And Cody would actually call Brock a coward as well. Not too many people get away with calling Brock Lesnar a coward. For now, Cody has. So then we go ahead and get The Miz one-on-one with Seth freaking Rollins. May I add, The Miz was technically supposed to face Matt Riddle last week on Raw, but for some reason, apparently that match was pulled the night before before the travel issues had happened. So I don't know what exactly happened there, but it's interesting there was no Miz on that Raw, and yet then we get him here, and he's facing Seth Rollins, who we've seen him fighting over the last several weeks leading into WrestleMania anyways. But I feel like personally Miz just needs to move over to SmackDown, but I kind of think Seth might. So maybe Miz needs to stay put on Raw and just get put into a different rivalry. But he needs something different because things haven't been going the way that Miz needs them. I mean, I would like to see Miz kind of on SmackDown because we haven't in a few years now. I want to say since Daniel Bryan stepped down as general manager and went back into in-ring action. They had a really good match, though. Seth would, of course, win with the stomp. And the question would be from that, where does Seth Rollins go from there? Well, we'd find out this past Friday on SmackDown, which we'll get into in a little bit. KO, Sami, and Riddle talk backstage more about their main event coming up. Get a little serious there, as usual. Then we get Bobby Lashley versus Austin Theory in a non-title match, which also seemed like it was kind of random to have this match again, but we'd find out partially why again later in the week. At the end of the match, looked like Lashley had things going how he wanted them, was looking for the hurt lock. Theory backs him into the corner, and then out of nowhere, Bronson Reed splashes both men in the corner. And Bronson Reed would beat up Lashley, and Lashley starts to make a little bit of a comeback, but then gets taken out by Theory from behind, and Reed would end up hitting the tsunami on Bobby Lashley. It was a pretty good match up to that point anyways. I'll give him that much. But then we get the Trish Stratus segment. Her revealing not only did she turn on Becky, but Trish Stratus, was the one that laid out Lita to get put into the match for the women's tag team titles.
In the same wardrobe that Brock Lesnar wore.
Pretty much, yes. It was honestly, it was just throwback to the Trish Stratus gear that she wore back when she was with Test and Albert, honestly. Her TNA outfit. Trish mentioned how she's not just eye candy pretty much, and not just a dream for all the kids and all that stuff, and has to tell story time about how she's the one that changed the women's division, how the women's division was viewed. She's the one that main evented Monday Night Raw, not Lita and her, just her. It was all her.
She's the one that split up the McMahon family. Oh wait, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about that. But it's true. But I think this is a good side to see from Trish, and we can get some good stuff out of this whole turn from her. I mean, it's been years since we've seen evil Trish, so it'll be nice to see how they go from there. I mean, obviously, eventually it's going to lead to Trish and Becky, but we could get Trish and Lita at some point before that, too. Who knows? All right. Kathy and Cody talk backstage. Oh, yeah. I haven't looked at anything on there, so Hopefully the chat section's fine, other than those 3 comments. Moving, just 3. Okay, never mind. We'll get into other people's stuff later. Got women's tag team match. Candice LeRae and Mia Yim versus Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green. Again, just seemed like a randomly thrown together match just to give Chelsea and Sonya momentum, if you will, going into the women's tag team title match on SmackDown. Candice and Mia got decent spots at points during this match, but again, I hate to say it, but the women's tag team matches seem like the pee breaks of the shows lately, for the most part, if you will.
Pretty much.
Chelsea would pick up the win. After the match, though, Chelsea Green would have a water bottle and squirt that in the face of Liv Morgan, who had to be held back by Raquel from doing anything to Chelsea afterwards, as Chelsea and Sonya would leave. And you go backstage, and Rick Boogs and Elias and the Street Profits are talking. And, of course, in comes Baron Corbin, and they're talking about the draft coming up. And Corbin mentions, hey, with the draft coming up, you guys, the Street Profits, could be broken up. And the Street Profits are like, oh, we need to go talk to Adam Pearce about that. Make sure that doesn't happen. Honestly, I think that just plants the seeds for what is going to happen in the draft. I feel like Montez Ford and Bianca Belair will probably stay on Raw, and Angela Dawkins will get drafted to SmackDown.
Yeah,
so
that's probably how it's going to be.
I can't see them splitting up Ford and Belair.
Well, even if Belair wasn't the champion and all that, I don't see Monday Night Raw letting someone like Montez go anyways.
Right? You wouldn't think they would. And I don't think Triple H would be as stupid as Vince and have the champions switch to the opposing brands and have the titles switch hands that way. But who knows?
That was so bad between Becky and Charlotte.
And between the Street Profits and the New Day the year before.
Right.
I hated both of them. Hope asked me, but what if the Intercontinental Champion moves over to Raw and the U.S. Champion moves to SmackDown and then they have to switch those? I said, hell no, they don't. That's happened before. They don't have to switch those titles because they're not Raw-specific or SmackDown-specific titles. The titles will stay on the champions if that's the case, which I could see those 2 champions switching brands too, by the way.
For sure.
Oh, during that backstage promo, Elias did mention to Rick Boogs how he will probably be drafted higher up than Boogs, but no matter what happens, they'll still be up and up. That's just going to lead to Boogs getting drafted before Elias, though.
Boogs going to go in the 4th round, Elias going undrafted.
Possibly. We shall see. And go backstage to the Usos and Solo. Usos talking up their upcoming tag team title rematch. And then move on to the main event. You got the Judgment Day versus Riddle, Owens, and Zayn. Really, really good 6-man tag main event, I felt like, here. I did not agree with who took the fall, though. It's fine that they give Matt Riddle the opportunity to get the win, but I was not happy with Finn Balor being the one to take the fall. I felt like I understand they want to keep Priest looking good going into the match at Backlash because we know we're going to get a tag team match with him and Dom versus Bad Bunny and Ray out of what's going on. There's no reason why they couldn't have Dom get pinned, though. It wouldn't hurt anything for that match to have Dom lose.
But I don't think it's originally supposed to be Bad Bunny and Ray. I think it's supposed to be Santos and Ray. And then Santos gets taken out and Bad Bunny steps in.
Possibly. We'll see. We might know more of this upcoming Monday on Raw when Bad Bunny returns. Tomorrow night. Of course, after the match, you get the Bloodline coming out there, and Riddle and KO and Sammy and the Judgment Day all fighting, and then the LWO and Rey Mysterio comes out there, and everybody's just sprawling as the show goes off the air. Chaotic finish to Monday Night Raw.
When isn't a Monday Night Raw finish not chaotic?
That's true, I guess, lately. I mean, Brock taking out Ray and then Bloodline getting involved 2 weeks in a row pretty much at the end of the show. All right. We kind of dropped our ratings, so I guess we don't have to worry about rating the show unless you want to give a rating to Raw.
When the Raws get better again, we'll just go back to ratings.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I feel like they're getting better week after week, though, since Raw after Mania. I'll give them that much.
Well, these next 2 Raws need to hit hard.
I'd agree. I mean, the draft being not tomorrow night, but a week after. Yeah, and going into Backlash.
See, I think the draft should have been earlier or wait till after Backlash to happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree. They probably should have did it the week after Backlash, the Friday after, and the Monday following that. But because you know that with it being just before Backlash, the actual new rosters won't take full effect until after Backlash.
Right. Like, oh my goodness, Theory's gonna lose his title.
Shh.
And then Lashley and Bronson are both drafted to SmackDown.
I know, right?
That makes no sense.
All right, so move on to NXT. They kicked off with the triple threat match for the NXT Tag Team titles, as you had Rip Fowler and Jagger Reed of Schism. Actually, they're known as
the Dyad.
Dyad, yes. I drew a blank there for a second. Thank you. Against the Creed brothers and, of course, the champions Gallus. You had the other 2 members of Schism out there. You had Joe Coffey, of course, out there with the champs, and Ivy Nile was out there with the Creed brothers. Ivy Nile would play a big part in the finish of this match, of course. Pretty chaotic triple threat match, and in the end, Ivy Nile being out there would cost the Creed brothers as she would get taken out inadvertently by Jagger Reed or Rip Fowler, whichever one it is. I can't keep up with their names of which one's which after they've had their name changes. Yeah, long hair. James Drake. James Drake. That's what we'll call him. Because that was his name.
I'm pretty sure he's Jagger Reed.
I think so too, but he got knocked off. Yeah. He got knocked off the turnbuckle by Brutus Creed and ended up clipping the back of Ivy Nile's knee. And Julius Creed happened to see that and would get distracted and go out to check on Ivy Nile, which led to Brutus being left alone to get taken out by both members of Gallus. As Wolfgang
he got manhandled.
He did. Wolfgang would pin Brutus Creed to retain the tag team titles for Gallus. It'll be interesting to see where they go from there, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Creed brothers at least probably get drafted to either Raw or SmackDown in the draft next week. Because I feel like they've done pretty much all there is that they can do on NXT. And Roderick Strong still out with an injury or whatever's going on with him. And it doesn't seem like there needs to be any more of the Diamond Mine storyline in NXT with them. To me personally.
Right, yeah. No, I agree with that.
All right. Then you got Miles Bourne, who a lot of people, I don't know if you know much about Miles Bourne or not. He is a deaf guy, in really good shape. He's a highly touted competitor for NXT and in the Performance Center. A lot of people I've seen on social media have actually compared him to a young Randy Orton. Big praise for a guy, but he hasn't gotten any W's yet in NXT the few times he's been shown on NXT programming, though. And that would continue here as he would take the loss to Noam Dar, but I thought he looked really good in this loss to Noam Dar. So.
I mean, Noam Dar is... I couldn't stand him before, and he's just come back more ruthless, and I think it's a good step in the right direction for him.
Right. I agree with that. Then move on. You got Roxanne Perez versus Zoe Stark. A really good women's division match, and an interesting way to get to Pop Rocks for Roxanne Perez to pick up the win over Zoe Stark there as well.
Creative as hell.
Yes, that move. I hate to pull it, but that move she can literally hit out of nowhere.
Okay, let's not RKO this. Okay.
Maybe, but it's true. She's done it though. She's proven she can hit it out of anywhere pretty much over the last several months. All right, move on. The next women's division match, you got Gigi Dolan versus Cora Jade. What happened to your poor Gigi?
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, she got beat. That's what happened. Thanks to JC Jane. Of course.
Damn hole.
Gigi would go chasing after JC afterwards. But...
There's only one way you make NXT better. You bring back Nikita.
Yeah. You got to heal up first. Gigi would chase after JC, and Cora would, of course, get interrupted by Valkyrie again. So that match will be taking place at NXT Spring Break-In. Then you got Dijak versus Apollo Crews. These two had a really good match. In the end, Dijak would pick up the win with a Feast Your Eyes, but it was still a pretty good match. Afterwards, though, Dijak would get a visitor. As from the week before, he would get in the face of this individual, and Ilya Dragunov wanted to give it a little payback, as the two would brawl a little bit and get separated. So, looks like I personally wouldn't be surprised to see one or both Dijak and Apollo get moved up to either Raw or SmackDown. I feel like Apollo hasn't won the big one like he set out to do when he came back to NXT, but is there really any need to have Apollo stay in NXT?
No, not really.
He's above that, I feel like. So, I mean, I almost feel like the main thing that they wanted to do was have the turn from Dabba-Kato, and they did that. What else is there for Apollo to do? Because you're not really going to give him a shot as the champion. So, it don't look like. All right. So then they move on from that. You got the main event match as Wesley defended the North American Championship against Charlie Dempsey. Pretty good match. Drew Gulak would try to get involved at times. It would get involved at times, I should say. Gulak would get taken out, and Wesley would hit the cardiac kick on Charlie Dempsey to get the 1-2-3, and then would get beaten up by both men after the match.
My only issue is like with the pay-per-view, it didn't look like he got all of it like he should have.
Right? Yeah, I feel like if that's going to be the case going forward, that they need to figure out a different finisher for Wes.
Yeah, because it's not selling like it should be.
Right. And that guy, Wesley, is so acrobatic and could easily do a 450 or not saying that we need a 450 necessarily for his finisher or shooting.
He could do a Pop Rocks out of nowhere.
He could do something like that. There's so much that he could use that would be a better finish than that if he's going to keep biffing the finish pretty much. All right. The show would end. Of course, you got the Grayson Waller effect. You got Waller and Carmelo out there talking their talk. Grayson saying he's going to have a golden shoey at Spring Break-In as he wins the NXT Championship. And Carmelo says that Grayson's name will just be added on a jersey as yet another victim, pretty much, of his going forward.
I mean, you're not wrong.
It wouldn't be surprising either. All right. That was pretty much it for NXT. I mean, they had the Braun Breaker segment with Duke Hudson, of course, during the show as well. It sounded like, well, Duke made it sound like it was going to be Duke versus Braun Breaker at Spring Breakin', but you had to know what was actually coming.
It's going to be Andre.
Yeah, that's what it ended up being. It's Andre Chase is who Duke Hudson put in the match to be going one-on-one with Braun Breaker.
Because he's a wussy.
Yep.
Darn Australians. Can't trust them.
I was going to say, I still don't trust Duke Hudson. So even after what happened at the pre-show for the end of delivery.
Such a good match, though.
I still haven't gone back and watched it fully, but like I said, I've seen the majority of it, and I really enjoyed what I did see of it. So. Move on to Dynamite. It starts off with Jungle Boy Jack Perry, and as he's getting ready to start talking, out comes the Spanish God, Sammy Guevara. And then when Sammy thinks he's going to start talking, out comes Darby Allin. And then finally, you get those three talking and beating each other up verbally, pretty much, singing praises of each other at points. But you get the four pillars eventually talking as MJF finally comes out after a while. And MJF announces that he talked to his good friend Tony and had set up a four pillars tournament, as it would be between those three, as he had somebody come out with a hat and all three names in it. He pulled out one name that would get a bye to the finals, and that was Darby Allin, as the main event would be Jungle Boy Jack Perry versus Sammy Guevara in the first round match of the Four Pillars tournament. I'll get into more of that when we get to the main event. Move on from there. You got Tony Storm and Ruby Soho in the opening match against Jamie Hayter and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, of course, in Britt's hometown of Pittsburgh, or Britsburg, if you will. Pretty good tag team match. In the end, you see Britt get locked in, and Ruby Soho for the tap out victory. That was the main thing to mention from that tag team match, I would say. The crowd, of course, was very much in Britt and Jamie's corner. We'll get into more on Britt later. Renee would be backstage talking to Wardlow. Wardlow would mention how he used to have a manager that was part of the Horsemen that taught him ways to do things, and that he had somebody else in mind that was going to watch his back, as QT Marshall was going to be in Powerhouse Hobbs' corner, of course. Another member of the Horsemen. Bring in, as you were alluding there, Double A, Arn Anderson. Good to see Arn back on TV again. I think he's been part of their YouTube shows in the corner for certain people, but
yeah, it's good to see him back on TV.
Yes. All right. Be interesting to see where things go from there. We'll go into the match. You got Wardlow versus Hobbs for the TNT title. I wasn't impressed at all by the quick little match that they had a month or so ago when Hobbs won the title. I was a little more impressed with this one, but still not that great of a match, honestly. It was interesting to see Double A get involved with QT in there. Pentagon actually coming out there with Alex Abrahantes and making sure QT went back in the ring, and QT eating a DDT from Double A, which was awesome. I mean, you think Spinebuster usually when you think of Double A, because that's what you usually get from him, but Double A can still hit one hell of a DDT.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, Wardlow would get 3 power bombs on Powerhouse Hobbs, 1, 2, 3, and get the win to win back the TNT title. The TNT title.
Great.
But of course,
again.
But of course, before he could even celebrate, though, out comes Christian Cage and Luchasaurus to have a little stare down, as it looks like Luchasaurus will be the next challenger for the TNT title.
Oh my God.
So then we go backstage, and Renee's caught up with Sammy Guevara to talk about the main event match coming up. And in comes MJF, who wants Sammy to win this tournament and wants to face Sammy at Double or Nothing. But he wants Sammy to lay down for him at Double or Nothing. He's even willing to offer Sammy a blank check. So he hands a blank check over to Sammy, says, write down any number that you want on there, and we'll have a deal. You just walk in and you lay down. I retain my championship. Sammy wrote a number on there. MJF, it's like, really? That number? It's got to be that high? MJF actually agreed to it, though, which we'll get into more of later, as it looked like we got two new buddies, as those two would not shake hands as MJF wanted, but as Sammy told him, friends don't shake hands, friends hug. So Sammy would hug MJF. I'm a Sammy Guevara fan, but don't like this pairing at all.
No.
I don't think it's going to go anywhere really anyway, and we'll get into more of that in a little bit, but then we move on. You got Commander versus Jay White with Juice Robinson in his corner. Commander likes to do his flippy stuff, that's for sure. From what I've seen, there was actually quite a few botches for some of the stuff he was trying to do on the ropes that Jay White actually had to save him from having things go wrong. Jay White got the win of the match.
A person like Jay White in there.
Right? Luckily, Jay White got the win, and then afterwards, they were showing towards the points of the match that Shawn Spears was sitting in the crowd and was raising up the cards, the flash cards with numbers on them for the perfect 10 spot. And after the match, he held up a 6, I believe it was. Well, Juice Robinson didn't like that, so Juice pulled Shawn Spears over the barricade and throws him in the ring, and they start beating him up until Ricky Starks, of course, makes his return after a few weeks off and gets the better of Juice Robinson as Jay White would duck out of the ring, leave Juice to the wolves, so as to speak. I see a tag team match coming between those four eventually.
Oh, 100%.
Renee, then they would shoot to the back, talking to FTR. They show how Mark Briscoe had gotten attacked backstage earlier in the night by Ari Daivari, Tony Nese, Josh Woods, and Slim J. So then they'd go to showing them in the training room, and of course Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt are in there. Mark was supposed to be in an 8-man tag with them on Rampage, but Mark's not cleared to go. So instead, he wants FTR to go in there with Jay and Jeff, which they eventually, not wanting to, but they do agree to. Yes, I see Ed's in the chat. What's good, my people? Ed.
Eddie! I will also say, so basically, he got taken out by 205 Live.
Yeah, pretty much. 2 guys from it anyway. I feel like it's going a specific way there. Mark Briscoe wasn't happy with how Jay Lethal kind of conned him into aligning with Jeff and Satnam and Sanjay. So I feel like it's going to lead to FTR and Mark versus Jeff and Jay and Sanjay, or Satnam probably. Uh-oh. The new left fielder. Oh, that would have been interesting. All right. From there, you got Chris Jarrett and Cole's face to face. Adam mentioning how he grew up idolizing Chris and that a lot of his stuff is off of stuff he's seen from Chris Jericho. He respects Chris Jericho while Chris doesn't feel the same way. They get into a war of words from all that and start brawling. Of course, Daniel Garcia comes out, getting the upper hand for Chris. And then Britt Baker comes out, and she ends up slapping Chris Jericho, which was interesting to see. And then, of course, the Outcasts pop out from under the ring. We end up getting Adam Cole handcuffed to the bottom rope, and a kendo stick gets brought in, which Chris hands over to Saraya, and Saraya beats the living hell out of Britt Baker with that kendo stick multiple times in front of her hometown crowd and right in front of Austin / Adam Cole. More like the GWO, Jabroni World Order. Yeah, sure. What do you think of that whole segment between Jericho, Cole, the Outcasts, Britt?
I mean, it was. I don't want to sound WWE on it, but it was predictable. You knew that once Britt got out there, you knew what was going to happen.
True.
It's basically like it's been done by WWE multiple times in certain ways. Even with like the one time, I can't believe I'm using this name, but even like when Big Show handcuffed Alberto Del Rio and beat the crap out of Ricardo Rodriguez.
Yeah. I forgot completely about that.
Or when Randy Orton handcuffed Triple H and had his way with Stephanie. It's been done to
death. You might want to
rewind just different ways.
Yes. Good way to put it, I guess. But I've seen it. I've even thought this, but now I'm wondering. People saying lead to a mixed tag team match at Double or Nothing, which I could see being Adam and Britt versus Chris and Saraya. Daniel Garcia being a part of it, though, too. Maybe we could see a 6-way or 6-person mixed tag team match. And not necessarily Keith Lee, but there is another former Undisputed Era member in the AEW roster that who knows if he'd be able to go by then.
Is it one I approve of?
Well, let's see. Bobby Fish isn't in AEW anymore. Roderick Strong's in NXT. It's a Kyle. Let's put it that way.
One of the most crazy, intense wrestlers you'll ever see.
Kyle O'Reilly. He's still... He's best friends with Adam Cole, too, so I could see potentially... If he's good, I don't know where he's at anywhere near... If he's anywhere near 100%, but...
I still say they had one of the best rivalries in NXT. That storyline between Cole and O'Reilly was amazing.
It was. The old days of NXT. You gotta miss it still. The Undisputed Era version. Anywho, then you got a pre-taped interview from the Hardys talking about the firm deletion coming up. All that fun stuff. Then you got the JAS versus the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass in a 6-man tag trios match, where if the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass lost, then they had to join the Jericho Appreciation Society. Luckily, that didn't happen. The Acclaimed gets the win, as Max Caster would pin Mangelo Parker. Nothing surprising there, because there's no way they're going to have the Acclaimed join the JAS and have to stop scissoring all the time, because that was part of the whole contract too, was there'd be no more scissoring, no more Acclaimed merchandise and all that jazz if they had to join the JAS. Which doesn't make sense, because they're all about sports entertainment in Jericho Appreciation Society, and that's a lot of sports entertaining stuff from the Acclaimed. So why would they want all that gone if they wanted them as part of the JAS? That's my thinking anyway. Anywho. Move on to the main event. You got Sammy Guevara versus Jungle Boy in the Four Pillars tournament match. They had a really good match. But in the end, you have to question the referee here, in my opinion. You got both guys outside the ring. The referee's counting. I mean, he gets up to Sammy gets back in the ring, and the referee gets up to the count of 8, I believe, before Sammy grabs him and pulls him away so that he can't see that Jungle Boy makes it back into the ring. MJF pulls him back out and decks him with the Dynamite Diamond ring. And at that point, wouldn't anybody logically think that the referee should then restart the count because he had been interrupted?
I mean, yeah. But,
But this is, of course, AEW, and instead, the referee goes 9, 10 as soon as he turned around. Like, what the hell?
The money.
It's crazy. It's what it is. That's being nice. Sammy wins by count out, advances to main event with Darby Allin, who is watching from up in the rafters, shaking his head about everything that happened. MJF's just going to screw Darby like he screwed Jungle Boy. So I still feel like, even though they're doing this supposed tournament, 4 Pillars tournament, this is still going to lead to a fatal 4-way match at Double or Nothing. No question about it.
Oh, for sure.
There's not going to be any laying down from anybody. It's going to be those 4 gentlemen in the ring fighting it out. Probably MJF still winning and retaining the title somehow, but because there's no disqualifications in a fatal 4-way match, so he can easily use his Dynamite Diamond ring on anybody. Anywho, that was Dynamite. Let's move on to SmackDown. And we start off with Damian Priest and Finn Balor of the Judgment Day by themselves, might I add, just the 2 of them, going up against Santos Escobar and Rey Mysterio of the LWO. A really good tag team match, and Santos and Rey were by themselves as well. No other members of the LWO out there. Really good match. Blind tag happened towards the end of the match, which led to, of course, Damian Priest hitting South of Heaven on Santos and unexpecting Santos Escobar get the 1, 2, 3. I hate to say it, but the LWO, ever since it formed, they've just been jobbing every week. They're just seem like they're jobbers.
They seem like the Blue World Order.
I know, right? Nice to see the LWO colors and have the LWO back, I guess, but this isn't the way to do it, I feel like. I know it's just because they're going to Puerto Rico for Backlash and they want to do all that stuff, but still just doesn't feel right to me. Santos deserves so much better himself, personally.
Oh, for sure. He deserves to get another match against Rockstar Spud.
Sure. Priest, of course, then afterwards would get on the microphone and talk about how Bad Bunny's going to be on Raw this upcoming Monday and how he hopes things go a lot better for Bad Bunny this time around than what happened last time on Raw, that he was on Raw. And Adam Pearce is backstage, and Zelina Vega comes in and talks to him about how she wants a one-on-one match with Rhea Ripley for the SmackDown Women's title. She knows how she'd be the underdog, and many people wouldn't think she'd have a chance, but they're going to be in Puerto Rico. She's the only Puerto Rican on the WWE roster. She feels like she needs that moment. She needs that match, which Adam says he would take under advisement, and he would have to talk to the higher-ups and talk to Rhea about it first. In which Zelina says, well, let me know what mommy has to say. Then we get a video of Shinsuke Nakamura doing some training, and then it cuts right to Karrion Kross and Scarlett talking backstage. Karrion mentioning how every person that he's flipped the tarot cards over for has changed in a different way ever since his rivalries with them. Drew mentioning and Ray, and who else was the other one? all that stuff, anyways, saying that he took something out of each one of them pretty much, and that he's going to take the charisma or whatever out of Shinsuke. So we'll see where it goes from here. Start of a rivalry, those two are going to end up on the same brand no matter what happens when this rivalry is just starting. I have a feeling. Then we move on. You got Ricochet and Braun Strowman versus Eric and Ivar. Braun Strowman seemed to have gotten knocked a little loopy kind of early on in this match. I mean, he would tag in. He looked a little loopy before he made the tag, but he would tag in Ricochet and go to toss him at, I believe it was Eric at the time. He completely biffed it, though, and missed. And Ricochet just hit the mat. I'm like, man, what the heck, Braun? I mean, I get that you're throwing him as part of the weaponry, but still not what you wanted to do. They would eventually come back from that. I mean, Ricochet quickly would bounce back. It was a really good tag team match that these two teams had, and it looked like the Viking Raiders might actually pull it out at one point. They had Braun down. Ivar hit that top rope splash that he beat Ricochet with a few weeks back in their tag team match. And Eric even was on top of Ivar for the pin, but Braun still managed to roll his shoulder up to get out of it at 2. But then to see at the end Ricochet up on the top of Braun Strowman's shoulders and hitting that shooting star press off the shoulders on Ivar to get the win, impressive. That's for sure. This was probably the last time we'll see these two tag teams go against each other, I would imagine. My question and thought was, though, is this the last time we see Ricochet and Braun Strowman as a tag team?
I hope not.
Yeah?
I think they're tag team gold.
It could be. I mean, Eric and Ivar, I don't see them splitting up, but if either one of the two teams did, I think it'd be Ricochet and Braun, but who knows? It almost feels like they're just starting off with Ricochet and Braun as a tag team, though, too. So,
I mean, they remind me of a new version of Batista and Rey Mysterio.
Ooh, that is a good comparison. I'd agree with that. All right. I didn't even realize the first half of SmackDown was tag team heavy, all tag team matches. Because then from there you go into the women's tag team title match. You got Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville versus Raquel and Liv. I will say this tag team match for the women's tag team titles was actually a pretty good match, I felt like, compared to the women's tag team matches we've been getting lately. For me personally, anyways. Of course, there's going to be people, including Chelsea and Sonya, that'll complain about the finish. I mean, multiple times throughout the match, Sonya and Chelsea were trying to cheat, and the referee kept catching them in the act. And then at the end, Liv, who had been squirted in the face again before the match, decides to take a full bottle of water and throw it in the face of Chelsea Green.
Oh, Chelsea Green deserved it 100%.
She did. And then to roll her up and have Raquel from behind pushing on Liv's backside with her feet to get the 1, 2, 3. And the referee not seeing that.
Right.
The complaint department definitely has something to complain about after that match.
Agree 100% on that.
But a good win for Liv and Raquel to start off their tag team title run. Anyway.
Oh, for sure.
You move from there, you got Xavier Woods going one-on-one with Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. I felt like, honestly, this was probably one of, if not the best singles match for Xavier Woods that we've seen.
Oh, I mean, there's so many times where I believe that Xavier was going to win the match. And which you wouldn't expect from Xavier Woods to be the one to take down the ring general.
Right.
But overall, it's probably one of the best Xavier matches I've seen.
Yeah. And hey, give it to him this. He didn't get pinned. He didn't tap out. He passed out to that sleeper hold. I almost feel like Jessica Carr might have well, it wasn't just Jessica. It was Gunther too, because he kind of lost his grip and then had to lock in the sleeper again. But I feel like that was kind of botched there at the ending with the sleeper hold.
Oh yeah,
And kind of
100%.
called it quick, but still, it made Woods look good, and it didn't diminish his 2-year record of not losing in a singles match, pretty much. Going forward, what will we see from Gunther? Who knows? But I do like the rumors that are out there about who could be in line for another next title shot if he's cleared.
Would it be a big surprise?
Quite big, indeed.
Like, almost like a Big E kind of way?
Exactly. But we'll see.
We shall see.
And then we go from that. You got the Usos coming out to talk about the tag team title match coming up this next week. And they're going to bring back the titles and become 9-time champions. And they would also do the introduction for Solo Sikoa as it's time for the main event. You got Solo Sikoa and Matt Riddle, no DQ. Of course, the Usos took off, but they eventually come back during the match. Pretty good match that they had, even with the Usos getting involved. There's no KO and Sammy there, though. So you knew things weren't going to turn out well. The ending was pretty nice, though, seeing the Samoan Spike hit the way it was, catching Matt Riddle out of midair, pretty much. I mean, Michael Cole didn't even realize for sure at first if it was a Samoan Spike or if he just got a clothesline or what exactly Solo had gotten out of it. So it's like, that was definitely a Samoan Spike. How can you not tell, Cole?
Cole's getting old.
Something. He says he's got only a couple of years, about 4 years left, and then he wants to retire. So we'll give him that much. He's been around a long time now. Did you know, though, speaking of Michael Cole, not to diminish from that match, he has called more WrestleManias than anybody, period, commentary-wise.
Really? I did not know that.
I did not know that either until around WrestleMania time. I seen that online. It's like, I never would have thought that. I mean, I would have thought JR still would be probably in the lead, but no, Michael Cole has called more WrestleManias than anybody. Anywho, it was nice that Matt Riddle kind of got a little revenge on Solo. He got to turn the tables, so as to speak, on Solo and flip the table on top of Solo Sikoa at one point during the match. But again, as mentioned, the Samoan Spike did come into play. Solo got the win. Look, Solo still only got one loss on the main roster. That was to Cody just before WrestleMania. Usos and Solo would lay out Riddle with a 1D through the table in the ring afterwards to send a message to KO and Sammy. That's how the show would end. Another pretty good SmackDown, anyway.
Yeah, currently SmackDown is doing better than Raw.
Honestly, not that surprising. I feel like it's been that way for the most part since we started this show, honestly.
Yeah.
Even before. So then you go to Rampage. That was on Saturday instead of Friday this week because of basketball. Christopher Daniels got beat by Jon Moxley by submission. Mox would shake his hand afterwards. Later on, though, Mox would show that it wasn't actually a sign of respect, though. He would beat up Christopher Daniels in the backstage area and blast his head against the lockers multiple times. Julia Hart would beat Kiara Hogan by submission. FTR and Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett won the 8-man tag team match, even with some dissension. Jeff accidentally hitting Dax Harwood at one point in that match, and Mark Briscoe would have to come out and try to ease the dissension after the match, as they were all arguing. And then Jalisco would lose to El Hijo del Vikingo in a AAA Mega Championship match for the main event. A decent Rampage yesterday, but I felt like SmackDown moved along pretty quickly for those 5 matches that they had on there. but in a good way. So, and good show. All right. That was a lot to cover over the last few weeks. Before we go too much into other things, this upcoming week, of course, we've got Monday Night Raw tomorrow night. Bad Bunny returns. They advertise Rey Mysterio versus Damian Priest on the show as well. So that'll be interesting to see where Rey and Damian go from there, with Bad Bunny being in the arena. I would assume that's where Bad Bunny will get involved, probably.
Probably, yeah.
I don't think, I'm going to double check. I don't think they've really advertised a whole lot other than that. I haven't read Twitter a whole lot, though, today, so I could be wrong. That's why I'm going to double check here. And after Raw, of course, got NXT Spring Break-In, which I'll get into a lot of that here in a minute after we double check on Raw. Search Twitter. All right. Let's see. Yeah, draft. WWE and Annie, I know that's going on right now. Probably a good show, too. Bad Bunny returns. No, that's all they say is Bad Bunny returns versus Damian Priest. Much more tomorrow night on Raw. So, Leslie.
Thank you.
Since I got that, let's go show this. Oops. I don't need that anymore. Up there. Hello. That's what I wanted you to do. And I didn't do it, and then I did do it. There we go. That's what I wanted. All right. So, with that only being shown for Monday Night Raw, here's what we got in store. One match, anyways. For NXT Spring Break-In on Tuesday night. You got the family, Tony D'Angelo and Channing Lorenzo versus Pretty Deadly in the first ever trunk match, where apparently, from what it sounds like, whoever manages to get their opponents into the trunk and shut the trunk, drive off, will be the winners. Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
I'm feeling those two are going to win, and that's pretty much the end of Pretty Deadly on NXT.
So you think Pretty Deadly's going up?
That. Yeah, I've heard rumors they might be, so. Ooh, I want that back. Try what it showed me instead. Go past that because I don't want that yet. Because this should show me all their matches for Tuesday night. Of course, we mentioned one already, Gary Chase. Which I'm sure Braun will win that easily. Cora Jade says she's got a point to prove. I like how when she came back, had that promo and kind of called back on two of her idols, CM Punk and AJ Lee, in that promo.
Well, she's like the spawn of them. If they were to have a kid in wrestling,
Right?
it'd be Cora, 100%.
I'd agree. Yeah, Von Wagner did reveal that he's one of the Beverly Brothers' kids on NXT this past week.
About time.
Really? We're kind of talking about a little bit there. Duke Hudson cowering his way out and Andre Chase into this match to go up against Bron Breakker. This is not wanting to load, apparently. Nice to see Bron Breakker to mashing out for the NXT title for a change. At a premium live,
weird.
well, at a main show, not a premium live event. That'll be on USA Network.
It's kind of.
Say what now?
It's kind of weird if not having him in a title match. It's kind of
All right. Yeah, I know you're not wanting to load. Technologies. Spring break-in. Well, the other match that I seen on there, oh, it went away. So, close out of that. All right. So from that, instead, we'll just talk about it here, and I'll look it up to make sure I got all the matches right. Don't miss any. Okay. So, NXT Spring Break-in. Oh yeah, they got a debuting guy named Oba Femi that's going to be making his debut there. Lyra Valkyria, as mentioned, versus Cora Jade. Andre Chase versus Bron Breakker. Brooke Jensen and Kiana James was the picture I was talking about. Will be facing off against Josh Briggs and Fallon Henley in a mixed tag team match as that family, so as to speak, has crumbled. Definitely be interesting to see Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen on opposite ends of the teams, pretty much. I found out something I didn't realize or didn't know, though, yesterday. Brooks Jensen is actually the son of former WWE superstar Bull Buchanan.
You didn't know that?
I did not know that, no. If I did, I forgot. Then we got the triple threat match for the NXT Women's Championship as Indy Hartwell defends against Roxanne Perez and Tiffany Stratton. If Indy's going to lose that title, it better be to Roxanne. That's all I got to say.
Could you imagine if they put it on Tiffany Stratton?
My God, that would be horrendous.
Transitional champion 2.0.
Yeah, I would hope so. And then, of course, the main event. Go ahead.
Next month, Nikita whoops her for the title.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. And of course, you got the main event: Grayson Waller versus Carmelo Hayes for the NXT Championship. Question here is: does Carmelo retain and stay put on NXT, or does Grayson win the title and Carmelo move up in the draft?
I don't think
Braun,
they're gonna let Carmelo go this soon.
I would hope not, personally.
I think Grayson's definitely going up.
You think so? Braun Breaker's definitely going either Raw or SmackDown. But
I think Grayson's gonna go to Raw and have a feud with him. Be the next person for the Miz to get entangled with.
you think so? I guess.
Well, yeah. Who's gonna have the better talk show?
Who are you going to root for in that situation, though? Because they're both bad guys.
Well, in that decision, I'd probably cheer for Grayson Waller because who doesn't love seeing the Miz get beat up?
Right? That'd be interesting.
And also, Grayson and Gargano can keep up their thing too.
Yeah, they could. Assuming Gargano stays put on Raw too.
Yeah.
But we'll see. You want that up though. So that's for that. Dynamite. Did they announce anything for? I'm sure they have. But they did announce quite a few matches for Dynamite last night on Rampage. I just got to remember what matches.
Isn't the Sammy and Darby match?
Well, yeah, that's one of them. Sammy versus Darby. The winner is supposed to go on to face MJF for the title at Double or Nothing. Tony Khan's supposed to make an appearance and an announcement, I guess.
This is now a fatal 4-way match.
Yeah, probably will announce that. Well, they don't show me Dynamite preview, do they? For next week. They make me go to Twitter to find out that shit too. I know they announced some stuff. Whoops. That, oh well. Trying to take a bunch of time to do it, but we'll get in there. That I know I want there. Alexander Wolf wishes he would have stayed in NXT longer.
Who?
Alexander Wolf.
That's just insanity.
Right. All right. So, supposed to hear from Wardlow and Double A. Hear from Adam Cole.
Baby!
Baby. Dax Harwood goes one-on-one with Jeff Jarrett. Sammy versus Darby, of course, in the main event. Orange Cassidy will defend the International Championship against Bandito.
Ooh, that's gonna be good.
That should be good. And Jade Cargill will defend the TBS Championship against Taya Valkyrie.
You mean Jade Cargill will somehow win when she shouldn't be?
Yeah, pretty much. I think Mark Sterling was saying on Rampage last night that if Taya uses the Road to Valhalla, I think is what she calls it, then she will lose the match automatically. And also, the Butcher and the Blade will be in tag team action against Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it should be an interesting Dynamite anyway. Yeah. Then you got SmackDown. You got, of course, the main event, the Usos versus KO and Sammy in the WrestleMania Night 1 main event rematch. I believe that's the only match that they've announced for SmackDown. But the main thing, of course, for SmackDown, night one of the 2023 WWE Draft. What will things look like after the draft? We'll find out next week once it ends on the following Raw. Who do you think is going to be one of the biggest surprises to move brands in the draft this year?
From any of the three brands?
Yeah.
Ooh. I think the biggest surprise. You can go so many ways with that. Just because we haven't seen this person, and I feel like this would be when you get to see him. Cameron Grimes, SmackDown.
Yeah, I have a feeling he'll be involved in the draft. Whether he goes to Raw or SmackDown, I don't know. But
I think he's going to go wherever Bray Wyatt is. I think he'll be a part of that.
Or possibly. For that matter, Bray Wyatt was not shown as one of the people when they showed on SmackDown the picture of the people eligible for the draft. So,
also on Facebook, Sportskeeda posted the list of eligible people.
Yeah.
However, none of them are from NXT.
Right. Well, the NXT people, of course, will be, but
right.
Bray Wyatt wasn't in the picture. They didn't have Randy Orton. Big E wasn't in there. Kofi was, though. Kofi and Woods both were together. AJ was shown in there, though, and he's still out injured. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, they even showed Charlotte, and she's off of work for a while for right now, too. So, not that they have to be drafted.
Because they're listed doesn't mean they're going to get drafted.
Right. Like I said, they don't have to be in the arena either to get drafted. So we've seen that in the past.
Gable Stevenson to Raw.
Gable Stevenson?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know that he'll get drafted anywhere. From what I'm hearing, he's been working in the Performance Center, but has not been wowing anybody really. That's why he hasn't been on TV. They have not been too impressed with.
So if
I personally think, go ahead.
So if there had to be if 3 NXT tag teams got called up, what do you think the 3 would be?
Pretty Deadly, the Creed brothers. Ooh. Those 2 I could easily see. Maybe Indus even though Saga's injured.
What about oh crap, I can't remember their tag name. Oh, jeez. Blade, no. I cannot remember their name to save me. They were one of the teams that took on Pretty Dudley when they had to go 3 rounds for their.
Oh, Malik Blade and Idris Anafi.
Yeah.
Maybe. I kind of doubt it, though.
I
feel like
they get buried if they get part up, probably.
Right. Oh, I kind of feel like one of the big ones might be you might see the Bloodline get drafted to Raw and see Judgment Day coming over to SmackDown in exchange.
Yeah.
But that's the question for that one is, though, will Fox be okay with executive were a big part of Roman being on Raw or on SmackDown.
Probably not.
Well, we'll see what happens. It should be an interesting draft nonetheless. Just don't having Shane go to SmackDown and someone go to Raw and having them swap titles.
Maximum male models to NXT.
You can do that. Just have it be the Intercontinental Champion. Trying to say you don't think Massey and Mansois are seasoned enough to be on Raw or SmackDown?
No, because well, they are, but they can't. They don't compare to Otis.
True. I think we probably will be the end of the Alpha Academy as well, though. Just like I think we'll see the end of the Street Profits.
Right. Well, I like how everyone's doing on their 2K3 stories. That the breakup of Otis and Gable, and then all of a sudden it's Chad Gable and Gable Stevenson.
Oh yeah.
To be the next American Alpha.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, someone's got to make Gable Stevenson look good. Let it be Chad Gable.
Right? All right. So one more thing to talk about, at least here, before we kick off the show. In the show, rather. Kick off the show. Hello. That's what I found out that it's in us. Flash. And we got to start this one. Why? Anyhow, are we randomly getting Seth freaking Rollins going one-on-one with the Nigerian giant Omos?
Do oh, I can't right now.
So they announced it on SmackDown. I gotta show you if I can get it to load here, because I thought this was hilarious. People on social media were questioning this all night afterwards. I have no clue why Rollins and Omos when there's been no interactions, nothing between these two. But I think this might have took the cake on it for the most part. Let's see if I can get it. Like I said, I gotta see if it'll load here. Hey, they're getting their blue check marks back on Facebook. They're on Twitter. Some of these people are.
Yay.
Yep. I got it to load. Good. For a second. Stop that screen. I want to show this one instead. Because this one's probably... That was Seth Rollins' reaction to finding out he's going to be facing Omos at Backlash. Seth posted that on Twitter right afterwards. All righty then.
But it makes no sense to have this match.
I know, right? I mean, Seth beat Logan Paul at WrestleMania. Omos lost to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Omos since beat Elias on Raw after Mania and hasn't been seen since. Seth freaking Rollins comes out, does the little conducting for his song, and then walks out on Monday Night Raw. He did walk out, by the way, if anybody didn't know, because he did not like the whole. There was supposed to be more to that segment than what there was. Anyway. And then we didn't see Seth for a week, and then he beats Miz this past week. And all of a sudden now we're getting Seth versus Omos. Random as shit, that's for sure. I mean, I'm hoping it's to be a good match, but crazy. More sense anyways. That was announced. What?
I mean, let's look at Seth freaking Rollins' track record. He's slayed kings. He's slayed beasts.
Yeah.
Now he's got to slay giant.
He does. He's beaten giants before. He's beaten the Big Show. And Kane.
Yeah, but it wasn't really slaying the giant. You know how it was when he beat Brock Lesnar and Triple H.
True. I personally, like I said earlier, I think it'll be Seth's last match as a Raw competitor, but
yeah,
we'll see. Then you got this match that was made official. Bronson Reed, Bobby Lashley, and Austin Theory in a triple threat match for the U.S. title. At first I was like, why the hell is Theory defending in a triple threat match? And I was like, oh, well, makes sense after what happened on Raw Monday night, I guess.
Theory will somehow retain, though.
I agree. Theory will retain and take the title to SmackDown. I really want to see Lashley go to SmackDown, though, too. Personally, I would love it if they had all three of these guys move over to SmackDown. And then you not know for certain that that'll end up being who the champion will be. I mean, we're kind of giving away our predictions here, too. But
right.
Not necessarily full on. That could change within the next week since Backlash isn't until, or 2 weeks, sorry. Since Backlash isn't until the beginning. Till May. And as mentioned, this match was made official after the backstage segment. Rhea Ripley will defend the SmackDown Women's title against Zelina Vega.
And she could be SmackDown Women Champion. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, she'll probably be fully SmackDown, and then she'll, who knows, maybe the LWO will move over to Raw. Who knows? And of course, you got the 6-man tag team match as Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn will face the Usos and Solo Sikoa. The main event, Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. So we got 5 matches, 3 of which were just made on SmackDown Friday night. So we'll see where it goes from there. Of course, Backlash hosted by Bad Bunny. Can't forget that, because I got to mention that all the time.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see where things go from there. All right. So with that, and you weren't supposed to do that. Supposed to go. So, what I'm looking at, since Backlash is a week from this upcoming Saturday, May 6th, if we don't come on here next weekend, which probably won't because I've got, well, maybe next Sunday I still can. It might be earlier in the day, though, because I got next weekend off because I'm going to be out of town. But yeah, I could still do Sunday night, probably. If you're not busy Sunday night, we'll keep it in mind.
As far as I know, I'm not busy.
But from there, okay. So we'll look to try and do a recap show, review show next Sunday. If not, then if we don't get to that, I definitely want to do a Backlash prediction show. Probably do it Saturday afternoon before Backlash, like 5:30, 6 o'clock ish. Probably 6, closer to give me a chance because I'll probably work till 5 o'clock that day.
Okay.
So for you, and so you can let the other guys know that joined in for our WrestleMania prediction show, and Eddie, if he gets a chance to be available, of course. So anybody else who may see this at any point in time, if they want to join in the comments or want to join in the show, period, you'd have to let us know. All right. Other than that, I do have probably something else I'll do on here at some point this week or next week, but that doesn't have anything to do with WWE, AEW wise, so I won't worry about that too much. I'll have that stuff posted on social media when I get to it. I think other than that, that's pretty much it I've got anyways.
I got
anything
nothing.
You want to get? Nothing over the last few weeks or going forward?
I mean, Raw is slowly getting better, so that's getting taken care of.
Yeah.
Just waiting for Nikita to return, make everything better. Other than that, that's about it.
All right. Yeah, I'll get to your question later. Well, then thank you, John, for being part of this. Thanks, Buster Boy and Eddie for coming in the chat section for a little bit. And with that, we bid you